She slammed the door behind her, the echo bouncing off the cold apartment walls. For years, she had endured whispers, lies, and the subtle venom of a man who said he loved her but only thrived on control. Tonight, she was finally free. The city lights glimmered through her apartment window, painting streaks of hope across her tear-streaked face. Lena Harris wasn't just walking away from a relationship, she was reclaiming her life. Her phone buzzed, a notification from an unfamiliar number. She hesitated. "Dinner tonight. I insist." The text was simple, polite, confident. It was from a man she didn't know, yet something in the words made her pulse quicken. For the first time in years, Lena felt curiosity. Maybe, just maybe, freedom had a taste she hadn't expected. "Hi my beautiful family. I have missed you all. Thank you so for sticking around with me. I truly appreciate your love and support. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because, tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin." Lena Harris pushed her chair back from the small, cluttered kitchen table, a sigh escaping her lips. The apartment was quiet now. Too quiet, she realized. For months, the constant tension, the biting words, the small but persistent undermining of her confidence had dominated every room she entered. Now, even silence seemed luxurious. Her eyes fell on the small stack of unpaid bills, reminders of the chaos left behind by a life she'd endured in half-light. She ran her fingers through her dark curls, letting the stress leave her in slow waves. Lena was not the type to beg, plead, or linger. She knew the moment to step away was long overdue. The door to her past was closed, though memories lingered, faint but sharp. Every laugh turned sarcastic, every compliment coated in disdain. They were etched into her mind like scratches on glass. She would never forget, but she would also never return. Outside, the city hummed, a quiet pulse beneath the apartment building. The sound of distant horns, late-night walkers, and the faint laughter of strangers felt like music to her ears. Lena hadn't realized how much she'd craved normality until now. Normality, freedom, a life not dictated by someone else's insecurities masquerading as love. Her phone buzzed again. This time she didn't hesitate. A new message appeared, "Dinner tonight. I insist." Ethan Clark. Her fingers hovered, uncertain. Ethan Clark. The name didn't ring a bell. She didn't know him. Yet the confidence behind the words stirred something she hadn't felt in years, curiosity. And something else, a subtle flicker of excitement she was almost afraid to admit. She glanced at her reflection in the window. The woman staring back at her was strong, resilient, beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with anyone else's approval. The dark green blouse she'd chosen felt daring, empowering. Tonight was about possibility. By the time she arrived at the small, intimate restaurant downtown, the soft glow of hanging lights and the quiet buzz of conversation made her heart flutter in a way she hadn't expected. Ethan Clark was already there, standing at the entrance with that kind of casual elegance that seemed effortless. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp, handsome features softened by a gentle, welcoming smile. His eyes, blue, calm, and assessing, met hers immediately, and Lena felt her pulse catch. "Lena Harris." His voice was deep, but not overbearing. Polite, commanding yet warm. "Yes," she said, a cautious smile tugging at her lips. "May I?" He gestured toward the table. She nodded, and he guided her to a small corner table where the light hit perfectly, highlighting the contours of her face. There was no arrogance here, no pretense. Just a man who seemed utterly comfortable in his own skin, and somehow, entirely present in this moment with her. Dinner began with light conversation, casual, effortless. Ethan asked about her career, her passions, the small joys that made life worth living. Lena found herself revealing things she hadn't shared with anyone for months. The way she loved painting in quiet mornings, how she relished cooking dishes she'd learned from her grandmother. Ethan listened. Truly listened. And then, almost imperceptibly, he leaned forward. "You're remarkable," he said. Not just because of what you've survived, but because of how you've risen above it. The words struck her like lightning. Compliments had always been weapons in her previous relationship, used to confuse or control her. This was different. The weight of authenticity wrapped around them like the soft music in the background, and Lena felt her guard loosen just a fraction. By the time dessert arrived, a delicate chocolate tart with a hint of raspberry, Lena realized she hadn't thought about her ex once. Not tonight. She laughed freely, the sound bright, unencumbered. Ethan laughed too, low and genuine, and something in that sound felt like a balm she hadn't known she needed. You have a way of making someone feel seen, Lena admitted, her eyes locking with his. There was vulnerability in her voice, but also a spark of boldness. Ethan's hand hovered above hers, a subtle gesture, not forced, just enough to convey warmth. I see you, he said simply. The statement wasn't just words. It was a promise, or at least the beginning of one. Lena felt her chest tighten. Curiosity had blossomed into intrigue, and intrigue was dangerous. Dangerous because it made the heart stir in ways logic tried to suppress. The night ended with a walk outside, the city air crisp and scented faintly of autumn leaves. Ethan offered his arm, and Lena took it, the gesture familiar but electric all at once. They spoke softly about favorite books, music, and the little absurdities of life. Each shared detail built a bridge, connecting two people who had lived very different lives yet seemed, somehow, to recognize a shared rhythm. As they reached her apartment building, Ethan hesitated. May I see you again? The simplicity of the request was almost shocking. No pressure, no over-the-top gestures. Just honesty. Lena nodded, a small smile on her lips. I'd like that. She watched him walk away, and for the first time in years, her mind was not clouded by fear or resentment. A new story had begun, one of trust, intrigue, and a connection that promised more than the safety she'd clung to. A story where she could be seen, not controlled, not diminished, but fully herself. She entered her apartment, the quiet now filled with possibility rather than emptiness. Her phone buzzed again, this time a new text. Sleep well. Tomorrow, we begin something extraordinary. Lena's lips curved into a soft, incredulous smile. Extraordinary. It felt bold, impossible, and exactly what she had been missing. For the first time in a long time, she felt ready to believe in someone again. Have you ever walked away from someone you thought you couldn't live without, only to meet someone who sees the real you? The next morning, sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Lena's apartment, illuminating her kitchen in a warm, soft glow. She stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, replaying last night's dinner over and over in her mind. Ethan Clark's smile, the way he listened as if her words were treasures, lingered like the scent of fresh bread baking. Her phone buzzed. She frowned at the notification, half expecting another message from her ex. Instead, it was Ethan. Breakfast at the Willow? I promise pancakes better than any you've ever had. Her lips curled into a smile. Normally, she would have resisted, guarded, wrapped in the armor of independence she had honed over years of surviving. But curiosity, and something deeper, a flutter of excitement, won. The cafe was quiet, filled with soft chatter and the aroma of brewing coffee. Ethan was already seated at a corner table, casual but undeniably striking, his black sweater hugging the contours of his broad shoulders. When their eyes met, a flicker of unspoken amusement passed between them. You actually showed up, he teased, voice warm, eyes crinkling in genuine delight. Not like I have a choice, she replied, smiling despite herself. He laughed, low and steady, leaning back with effortless grace. Lucky me. Their conversation unfolded naturally. Lena spoke of her work in PR, her struggles with clients, the stress she often carried home. Ethan shared glimpses of his life, the pressures of running a company, and the rare moments of vulnerability he allowed himself. She found herself leaning slightly forward, drawn to the subtle ways he revealed himself, the pauses in his speech that hinted at depth and pain. At one point, Ethan reached across the table, lightly brushing his fingers over hers as he pointed to the menu. The touch was fleeting but electric. Lena felt warmth spread through her chest, a gentle reminder that human contact, tender, unpressured, could be healing. "I've been hurt before," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper, eyes fixed on her coffee. "By someone I thought I could trust completely." Ethan's gaze softened. "I know. And I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. But I want to be the kind of man you can trust." The sincerity in his voice, the way he looked at her, stripped away layers she hadn't realized were still clinging to her. Lena's hand moved subtly toward his under the table, brushing against his. He didn't pull away. Instead, his thumb traced a gentle line over the back of her hand. Intimacy, tender and respectful, yet charged with electricity, ignited in that small, simple gesture. Lena found herself opening up more than she expected. She spoke of her ex, the manipulation, the suffocating control. Ethan listened, interjecting only with the occasional, validating remark. No judgments. No advice. Just presence. Hours passed in what felt like minutes. By the time they stepped out into the mild afternoon, the streets bustling with life, Lena realized her pulse had been racing all morning, not from fear, but from anticipation, excitement, and curiosity about the possibilities she'd allowed herself to imagine. Ethan suggested a walk along the riverfront. Lena agreed, and soon they were side by side, the casual touch of their arms brushing against each other sending sparks through both of them. They laughed easily, their conversation a mix of teasing, banter, and genuine curiosity about each other's worlds. At a quiet corner of the promenade, Ethan stopped, turning to face her. "I know this might feel sudden," he began, "but I want to know you fully. Not just the happy parts, the strong parts, the surface stuff, but everything." Lena's heart stuttered. She wanted to pull back, to protect herself. But something in Ethan's expression, honest, patient, unwavering, made her lower her defenses, if only slightly. I don't do vulnerability easily," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I've learned the hard way that people can hurt you under the guise of love." "I understand," he said softly, stepping closer, the warmth radiating from him palpable. "But what if this time, you didn't have to be afraid?" The moment stretched. Lena's breath caught. He reached out, gently brushing a curl from her face, his fingers lingering against her cheek. Her eyes fluttered closed at the contact. Tender. Safe. Real. The intimacy was subtle, electrifying, not rushed, just the closeness of two people carefully exploring boundaries, emotions, and the pull between them. I think I want to try," she whispered. Not the whole heart, not yet, but a tentative seed of trust. Ethan smiled, soft and approving, and leaned just slightly closer, enough that their foreheads almost touched. The energy between them was undeniable, and for a fleeting moment, the world narrowed to the gentle warmth, the soft sighs, and the tentative intimacy that felt both new and inevitable. Their first week of growing connection was dotted with small gestures, shared lunches, long phone calls that drifted into laughter and confessions, and the occasional spontaneous dinner at Ethan's apartment. One evening, as they cooked together, chopping vegetables and laughing over spilled ingredients, Lena felt a moment of pure, unguarded joy. Ethan reached behind her to steady her as she leaned forward, his chest brushing hers in a lingering, comforting touch. She looked up at him, caught off guard by the wave of emotions the simple contact evoked, desire, safety, and something deeper she wasn't yet ready to name. "I like this," she said quietly. "Me too," he replied, his eyes locking on hers, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. The tension between attraction and tenderness hummed, unspoken, electric. But intimacy, even tentative, can attract attention. One morning, Lena arrived at her office to find her ex's lawyer waiting with documents demanding immediate compliance on matters she thought were resolved months ago. Panic surged through her chest. Her carefully rebuilt world felt as though it could collapse in an instant. Ethan's call came moments later, his voice calm and reassuring. "I'll be there. Don't deal with this alone." When he arrived, Lena felt a mixture of gratitude and relief. The comfort of his presence, his steady hand brushing hers in reassurance, reminded her that connection could coexist with independence. They faced the situation together, strategizing over legal documents, his touch at her back grounding her, his whispered words steadying her racing thoughts. As the tension eased, Lena realized something profound. She wasn't just attracted to Ethan. She was beginning to rely on him in a healthy, balanced way. He wasn't controlling or overbearing. He was present, patient, understanding. He could be trusted, not blindly, but genuinely. Later that evening, after the storm had passed, they found themselves alone in her apartment. Ethan leaned against the doorway, watching her straighten papers she had scattered during the day. "You handled that brilliantly," he said, stepping closer. His hand rested lightly on her shoulder, then slid to her waist. Lena's breath hitched at the contact, but she didn't step back. "Thanks for being here," she admitted softly. He tilted her chin gently, eyes locking with hers. "I want to be here. For everything, calm and chaos alike." She closed the distance, letting herself rest against him, his warmth enveloping her. Their lips met in a tender, lingering kiss, exploratory yet filled with intention. The kiss deepened, slow and gentle, a dance of trust and newfound desire. Lena's hands found his chest, feeling the strength beneath his sweater, and Ethan's arms circled her, protective yet reverent. It was more than attraction, it was intimacy grounded in safety, respect, and an emerging emotional bond. When they finally pulled apart, their foreheads rested together, breaths mingling. Neither spoke, the silence saying everything. Lena realized that vulnerability didn't have to mean danger. It could mean connection. But life rarely allowed perfect moments to last. The following morning, a familiar face appeared unexpectedly in her life, a representative of her ex, with documents that threatened to undo everything she'd fought to reclaim. Lena's pulse raced, her newfound serenity threatened. The reality of her past colliding with the possibility of a future loomed over her. Ethan's text came before she could even think. "I'm on my way. We'll face this together." The storm was coming, and Lena understood that this connection, trust, intimacy, was about to be tested in ways she hadn't yet imagined. But for the first time, she wasn't facing it alone. Could you open your heart to someone after being hurt, or would fear hold you back? The city hummed with its usual chaos, but Lena felt a rare sense of anticipation that morning. The legal documents from her ex still threatened her independence, but that fear was temporarily displaced by the thought of Ethan. She had never imagined someone could enter her life and feel like safety and electricity all at once. A knock on the door startled her out of her reverie. It was Ethan, carrying a small bag of groceries and a warm smile that made her chest flutter. "Thought we could cook tonight," he said, stepping inside, his eyes immediately seeking hers. Something simple, therapeutic. As they unpacked ingredients side by side in her kitchen, their hands brushed repeatedly. Each contact sent sparks that weren't just physical, they were emotional, anchoring her in a connection she had never allowed herself to feel. Lena found herself leaning just slightly into his chest as he passed her a knife, feeling the press of his shoulder against hers. He caught her glance, a knowing smile playing at his lips. "You're warm," she murmured, half teasing, half confessing. "Only because you're standing too close," he replied, voice low, almost a whisper, eyes darkening with intent. His fingers grazed hers again, lingering deliberately, and Lena felt the heat in her chest intensify. As they cooked, Ethan guided her gently, his hand occasionally brushing the small of her back, pulling her closer when she leaned over the counter. Lena's breath hitched each time, a mixture of desire and trust blooming inside her. She allowed herself to linger in his touch, feeling the weight of his hand against hers as he helped chop vegetables. Their bodies moved in sync, natural and unhurried, like dancers learning each other's rhythms. When Lena turned to grab a bowl, Ethan stepped behind her, his chest brushing hers. She froze, heart hammering. His hands rested lightly on her waist, grounding her, and she felt the subtle swell of desire in her belly. Not overwhelming, but insistent. His lips brushed the side of her neck as he whispered, "You're incredible." She shivered, the intimacy electric but comforting. "Stop teasing," she said softly, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her arousal. "Not teasing," he murmured, fingers sliding gently along her waist to her back. "Just showing appreciation." Later, they moved to the couch, wine in hand, soft music filling the room. Ethan drew her onto his lap, arms wrapping around her waist as she settled against him. Lena rested her head on his shoulder, feeling his heartbeat against her ear. He tilted her chin up, and their lips met in a slow, tender kiss that deepened as he traced her jawline with his fingers. She let out a small gasp as his hands slid down her sides, exploring lightly, memorizing the contours of her body through the fabric of her blouse. The kiss was a mixture of exploration and reassurance, slow enough for her to respond without fear. Lena's hands roamed over his shoulders and back, pulling him closer, savoring the heat of his body and the safety in his embrace. When they paused, foreheads resting together, breaths mingling, Ethan whispered, "You can trust me. I'll never push too far, but I want to be here, with you." Tears threatened her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of being seen and desired without fear or judgment. She cupped his face, pressing a lingering kiss to his lips, fingers threading through his hair. Their bodies pressed close, warmth seeping through clothes, a delicate tension that was both comforting and intoxicating. But reality intruded the next morning. Another call from her ex's lawyer demanded immediate attention. Panic rose, but Ethan arrived, calm and protective. As they sat side by side at her desk, reviewing documents, his knee brushed hers repeatedly. Each touch was a subtle reassurance, grounding her amidst the chaos. That evening, they stood on her balcony, city lights sparkling below. Ethan pulled her close from behind, chest pressing into her back, hands resting gently on her waist. Lena leaned back into him, feeling his warmth, his breath against her neck. He kissed her shoulder softly, trailing down her arm with gentle, teasing touches that made her skin flush. "You handled today beautifully," he whispered. "I couldn't have without you," she admitted, leaning into him fully. He turned her in his arms, lips capturing hers again in a deeper, more urgent kiss. Lena's hands slid along his chest, feeling the strength beneath his sweater. His hands moved to the small of her back, then to her hips, pulling her closer, grounding her in the shared rhythm of desire and connection. The kiss was long and slow, electric yet tender, a physical language of trust and passion. When they finally broke apart, foreheads pressed together, neither wanted to move. Lena realized something profound. Intimacy wasn't just physical. It was shared vulnerability, trust, and the courage to let someone in completely. Ethan had shown her that closeness could exist without fear, that desire and safety could coexist. As he left that night, he whispered, "Tomorrow, we face everything together. And tonight, you rest. I'll be here." Lena watched him go, her body still tingling from the closeness they had shared. The legal threats and past traumas were still looming, but for the first time, she felt anchored, alive, and ready to embrace intimacy without fear. Could you allow yourself to feel desire and trust at the same time, after being hurt before? Lena woke to the city skyline glowing softly in the dawn light, but the calm of the morning couldn't mask the storm gathering inside her. The ex's threats were escalating. Legal notices, insinuations meant to tarnish her reputation, and hints of attempts to infiltrate her business dealings. She had survived hard times before, but the fear of losing everything clawed at her chest in a way she hadn't anticipated. Ethan arrived mid-morning, sensing the tension before she could articulate it. His calm presence was like a lighthouse cutting through fog. "We need a plan," he said, laying out his notes across her desk. "Every move they make, we anticipate. You're not alone in this." Sitting together, shoulders brushing as they reviewed documents, Lena felt both empowered and vulnerable. She realized how much she had relied on her own strength for years, and how foreign it felt to lean on someone else. The intimacy of shared struggle, coupled with the subtle physical closeness of Ethan's hand lightly touching hers while pointing at key details, was grounding. "Tell me about your father," Ethan said softly, his voice carrying curiosity without intrusion. Lena hesitated but then shared, revealing stories of guidance, discipline, and unspoken lessons that had shaped her resilience. Her eyes glistened as she recalled moments of pride and loss. Ethan listened intently, nodding, never interrupting, letting her vulnerability speak. When Lena asked about his own past, Ethan paused, a shadow crossing his features. There was someone I loved, a long time ago, he said. I wasn't ready for her. I wasn't ready for myself. The confession made Lena's heart tighten. They sat in silence, allowing the weight of past wounds to hang between them. Yet in that silence, there was connection, an unspoken acknowledgement that they both carried pain, but it didn't define them entirely. Later, Lena's phone buzzed with an anonymous text, a photo of her in the restaurant where she'd met Ethan weeks ago, accompanied by a veiled threat. Fear flared, but instead of panic, Lena felt a resolve hardening. She wasn't alone, and now, for the first time, she had someone in her corner who understood the stakes and would fight with her. That evening, Ethan invited her to his apartment, a neutral space away from prying eyes. As soon as she stepped in, the warmth of the room and the soft lighting made her feel safe. He guided her to the couch, and as she settled, he draped a blanket over her shoulders. Lena leaned against him, feeling the familiar comfort of his chest and the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. I'm scared, she admitted quietly, resting her head on his shoulder. I know, he replied, brushing her hair from her face. And that's okay. Being scared doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're alive. And we'll face this together. The intimacy between them deepened naturally. Lena tilted her head up, catching his gaze, and they shared a kiss that was tender but charged with emotion. Her hands found his arms, fingers tracing the lines of muscle beneath his sleeves, while his hands lingered on her back and waist, grounding her in the shared closeness. The kiss lingered longer than usual, a mutual affirmation of trust and desire, unhurried but electric. As they pulled back, Ethan whispered, "You're safe with me. I'll never let anyone hurt you like that again." Lena's eyes brimmed with tears, not of sorrow, but relief. She leaned into him again, feeling the physical and emotional support intertwining. Their intimacy wasn't rushed or overwhelming, it was a slow, deliberate weaving together of hearts and bodies, a sanctuary against the storm outside. But the past wasn't done revealing itself. While they were together, Lena received a call from a former business partner, warning her of confidential information being leaked, plans of her company being sabotaged, all orchestrated to force her into a corner. Rage mixed with fear, and Lena felt a sharp spike of vulnerability. Ethan took her hands in his, thumbs brushing over her knuckles, grounding her. "We fight this together. I won't let them corner you." His gaze held hers, unwavering, and she felt a surge of determination as well as longing. She realized she didn't want to face the world alone anymore, not with him by her side. Later, as rain pattered softly against the windows, they found themselves huddled together on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. The storm outside mirrored the turbulence in Lena's life, yet inside this cocoon, they found solace in each other. Ethan's hands traced gentle patterns along her back and arms, while Lena's fingers lingered on his chest, feeling the warmth and strength beneath. Their kisses were slow, exploratory, and electric, pausing occasionally to meet each other's gaze, to reaffirm trust. "Do you think it's strange," Lena asked, voice trembling slightly, "that I feel so safe with you, even with all this chaos?" "Not strange," he replied, tilting her chin up. "It's natural. Connection doesn't need calm to exist. It thrives in chaos too, if it's real." The night unfolded with tender intimacy. Their hands explored lightly over clothed bodies, each touch a conversation of desire and care. Kisses traced from lips to jaw to neck, fingers lingering in hair, and soft murmurs filled the room. The emotional intimacy made the physical connection richer, each touch reinforcing trust and mutual respect. Lena felt her heart and body opening to Ethan fully, safely, willingly, passionately. But dawn brought a chilling reminder that their bubble was temporary. Lena's phone lit up with news of an unexpected legal hearing, a move by her ex to seize control of critical assets. Panic surged again, and Lena froze, heart pounding. Ethan held her close, his chest pressed against hers. "We handle this together. Nothing happens to you without us planning first." Lena nodded, taking a deep breath. She realized how much she had grown in just a few weeks, not just trusting Ethan, but trusting herself to accept help, to embrace love without fear, and to face adversity with a partner who truly had her back. They spent the morning strategizing, intertwined physically in subtle ways, leaning close over documents, shoulders brushing, occasional touches to calm frayed nerves. The physical closeness mirrored their emotional alignment, each gesture a silent declaration of unity. By evening, Lena allowed herself a small indulgence, a slow, lingering kiss on Ethan's lips as a brief reprieve from the storm. Fingers intertwined, bodies close but respectful, hearts beating in tandem. This intimacy was not just desire, it was affirmation. They were a team, and their bond could withstand external pressures. As they parted reluctantly that night, Lena realized the stakes were higher than ever. Secrets had surfaced, threats loomed, and the darkness of her ex's manipulations was closing in. But the emotional and physical intimacy she shared with Ethan was now a shield and a weapon. She knew, no matter how fierce the storm, she wouldn't face it alone. For the first time, Lena felt that love didn't just soften pain, it strengthened resilience. And as she drifted into an uneasy sleep, the echo of Ethan's embrace lingered, a promise that the storm, no matter how fierce, would not consume them. Could you open your heart fully after betrayal, and still trust someone completely? The morning air was thick with tension. Rain had left the streets slick and reflective, echoing Lena's inner turmoil. Her phone buzzed incessantly with urgent messages from lawyers, her ex's threats growing more manipulative, designed to exploit any weakness. For the first time in weeks, Lena felt cornered, overwhelmed, and frightened. Ethan arrived almost immediately, sensing her distress even before she opened the door. His presence, usually a balm, felt insufficient against the weight of what she was facing. He stepped inside silently, his eyes scanning her tense posture, hands clenched tightly around her phone. "They're escalating," Lena whispered, voice tight. "Every move I make, it's like they know exactly how to push me." Ethan took her hand gently, fingers entwining with hers. "We'll handle this. Together. You don't have to face it alone." His words were steady, but Lena could feel the fear knotting her chest tighter than ever. Hours stretched into a grueling day of legal battles, meetings, and confrontations. Despite their teamwork, Lena began to notice subtle signs of strain, Ethan's jaw tight when he read an email, his shoulders stiff as he answered calls. For the first time, she felt their bond being tested not by distance or misunderstanding but by relentless external pressure. Later, a misunderstanding escalated. A text from an unknown number reached Ethan's phone. Someone had forwarded Lena's messages with her ex, twisting the content to imply betrayal. His eyes widened as he read the distorted messages, heart hammering. Lena noticed immediately, sensing the change in him. "Ethan, what is it?" she asked cautiously. He couldn't answer. Doubt clouded his gaze, and for a brief, terrifying moment, Lena felt the ground slip beneath her. Her heart thudded painfully. Was this the moment their fragile trust would fracture? Ethan began, voice tight. "I saw these messages. I don't understand." "They're lies," Lena said quickly, panic rising. "Someone's trying to make us distrust each other. You have to believe me." Ethan ran a hand over his face, frustration and confusion etched deep. The room was heavy with silence, punctuated only by the distant rumble of thunder. Lena's chest tightened. Their emotional intimacy felt strained, threatened by shadows neither had the strength to fight alone. Then came the night that broke them. Lena returned to her apartment to find a court summons slipped under her door, evidence that her ex had taken a legal maneuver threatening not just her business, but her home. Rage flared alongside fear, tears stinging her eyes. She dialed Ethan's number repeatedly, but he didn't answer. Each unanswered ring was a hammer blow. When he finally arrived, hours later, their reunion was anything but comforting. Exhaustion, fear, and anger collided. "Why didn't you answer?" Lena demanded, voice trembling. "I needed you. I had to handle something," Ethan replied, voice tight. "I wasn't ignoring you." "You weren't here when I needed you most," she shouted, the walls echoing her despair. The tension was unbearable, hearts raw, bodies aching to connect yet blocked by miscommunication and fear. Their physical proximity was electric but tense. Ethan reached for her, but she pulled back. "Don't touch me," Lena cried. Her voice, usually composed and measured, now cracked under the weight of exhaustion and betrayal. Ethan froze, his own chest tight. "Lena, please. I'm here. I'm not leaving." Her hands trembled as she covered her face, sobs breaking free. "I can't. I can't do this if we don't trust each other." The night stretched on in a painful stalemate. They were together physically, sitting in the living room, just a few feet apart, but emotionally, walls had risen. Lena's sobs and Ethan's silent frustration created a tension that was almost unbearable. They were tethered by love but tested by doubt, the external storm mirrored by their internal struggle. Eventually, exhaustion forced them apart. Lena retreated to her bedroom, door shut, while Ethan remained in the living area, grappling with the gnawing fear that this was the end. His mind replayed the distorted messages, his chest heavy with guilt for even momentarily doubting her. In the quiet hours, Lena reflected on everything: the threats, the intimacy, the trust she had given so freely, and the fear that it might crumble in a single misinterpreted moment. Her hand brushed the sheets as she recalled Ethan's gentle touches, the warmth of his embrace, the lingering softness of his lips on hers. The memory stung, a sharp ache of longing and regret. Ethan, alone in the living area, ran his fingers through his hair, haunted by the reality that one misstep could undo weeks of growth. He replayed their intimate moments, the cooking together, the balcony embrace, the slow kisses that had been affirmations of trust and desire. Each memory was now both a comfort and a torment, highlighting how easily doubt could threaten what they had built. The next morning brought another challenge. Lena discovered that her ex had leaked sensitive information about her company to the press. Panic surged again, but this time she didn't face it alone. Ethan arrived, unwavering despite the tension between them. He placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "We fix this together," he said. The intimacy they shared became a lifeline amidst the chaos. Ethan's hand lingered on her waist, guiding her gently as they navigated interviews and calls. Lena allowed herself to rest briefly against him, drawing courage from the warmth of his chest. Small gestures, fingers brushing hers, a brief touch to her lower back, whispered reassurances, became anchor points, physical signs of their emotional bond holding steady despite the storm. But just as momentum seemed to return, Lena's ex orchestrated a public confrontation at one of her key business events, threatening to humiliate her in front of investors and clients. Panic surged, and Lena froze, heart hammering. Ethan caught her arm gently. "Look at me," he said, his gaze fierce yet tender. "You're stronger than this. And I'm not letting them hurt you alone." The words bolstered her courage, but the fear of exposure and humiliation gnawed at her. The emotional pressure and the close physical proximity, his hand on her arm, chest near hers, created a heady mix of tension and desire, making her acutely aware of the intimacy that had become both her refuge and her vulnerability. The climax of the night came in the elevator ride after the confrontation. Pressed close together, Lena's hands rested against Ethan's chest, and his arms wrapped around her waist instinctively. The warmth of his body, the soft hum of reassurance, and the lingering smell of his cologne created a heady blend of fear, relief, and longing. Their lips met in a desperate, lingering kiss, part comfort, part desire, conveying everything words could not. It was a cathartic release, a moment of shared vulnerability and passion amidst chaos. As the elevator doors opened and they stepped into the quiet lobby, reality returned with a jolt. The threats were not gone, the ex still scheming, and their trust had been tested to its limits. But something fundamental had shifted. Their intimacy, both emotional and physical, was no longer fragile. They had survived miscommunication, fear, and danger together, and the bond had only strengthened. That night, lying in her bed with Ethan's hand entwined with hers, Lena realized the truth. Love wasn't about perfection. It was about facing the darkest moments together, allowing trust and desire to coexist even when the world tried to pull them apart. And as sleep finally claimed her, the storm outside mirrored the calm inside, a temporary lull. Before the ultimate resolution, where love would prove its strength against all odds. Could love survive when fear, doubt, and outside forces seem insurmountable? Would you fight or let go? The morning light streamed through the window, soft and warm, as if the world itself had decided to offer a fresh start. Lena sat at her kitchen table, coffee in hand, staring at the stack of documents that now represented not fear, but victory. Her ex's latest attempt to sabotage her business had been thwarted, thanks to careful planning, legal strategy, and, above all, Ethan's unwavering support. Ethan entered, carrying 2 mugs. The faint scent of cinnamon from his coffee reminded her of small, intimate mornings they had shared, the quiet domesticity that had felt impossible weeks ago. He set a mug beside her, his fingers brushing hers. "Morning," he said softly. "Morning," Lena replied, eyes lingering on his. There was a softness there, a mixture of pride, relief, and love that made her heart swell. They had fought storms together, external threats, misunderstandings, fears, but what had truly mattered was the bond they had built through every challenge. Lena realized that her strength was magnified when shared, her vulnerabilities safe in Ethan's hands. Later, they convened with their legal team to finalize the protection measures for her business. Lena observed Ethan as he leaned close, whispering strategies, fingers grazing hers as they passed documents back and forth. Each touch, subtle yet intentional, reinforced the intimacy that had become their lifeline. Lena felt the warmth of his presence as both shield and partner, a constant reminder that she no longer had to face the world alone. After the final signatures were inked and the last threats neutralized, Lena allowed herself a moment of reflection. She looked at Ethan, seeing not just the man who had captured her heart, but a partner in every sense, someone who celebrated her intelligence, respected her boundaries, and matched her courage step for step. "Come with me," Ethan said suddenly, taking her hand. Surprised, Lena followed as he led her to the balcony overlooking the city. The late afternoon sun painted the skyline in gold, and for a moment, it was as if time had slowed. "I know it's been chaotic," Ethan began, voice low but filled with emotion. "But I need you to know something. Everything I've done, everything I've felt, has always been for you. You're not just the woman I love, you're the woman I want to face every challenge with, every joy, every heartbreak." Lena's heart raced. Her hand found his cheek, thumb brushing over the faint stubble there, feeling the warmth and solidity beneath her fingers. "Ethan," she whispered. Words faltered because no words seemed adequate. He took a step closer, closing the small distance between them. Their bodies pressed together, a tender and magnetic embrace that radiated relief, desire, and promise. Their lips met in a kiss that was slow, deliberate, and consuming, soft at first, then deepening as emotion overtook restraint. Lena's hands traced the contours of his shoulders, arms, and back, while Ethan's hands rested firmly on her waist, pulling her close yet respecting the rhythm of their connection. The intimacy was not rushed, it was a carefully built crescendo of trust and longing. Fingers threaded in hair, lips brushing temple and jawline, subtle sighs that spoke volumes. Every touch reinforced their bond, a fusion of emotional and physical connection that had been tempered through fire. Lena melted into him, heart and body entwined, letting herself fully surrender to safety, love, and desire. When they finally parted, foreheads resting together, breath mingling, Ethan whispered, "I love you. Every part of you, the strong, the scared, the brilliant. I love it all." Tears glistened in Lena's eyes, a mixture of relief, triumph, and overwhelming affection. "I love you too," she murmured. "And I trust you. Completely." The following weeks were a gentle unfolding of peace, success, and intimacy. Lena's business thrived, now fortified against sabotage, while she and Ethan explored the depth of their connection. Small moments, cooking together, late-night walks, whispered jokes in quiet corners, became sacred rituals. The intimacy grew naturally, a seamless blend of touch, laughter, and affection. Their kisses, once urgent and desperate, now held patience, playfulness, and reverence. Family and friends were introduced gradually, met with warmth and respect. Ethan embraced Lena's world without intrusion, celebrating her culture and achievements, while Lena welcomed him fully into hers. There was no pretense, no performative gestures, just a genuine merging of lives built on trust, respect, and love. One evening, they sat on the rooftop of Lena's apartment, city lights shimmering like a constellation beneath them. Ethan took both of her hands in his, gazing into her eyes with unwavering intensity. "I want to spend every day proving that love isn't just words, it's action. It's being there when it's hardest, being present when it's simplest, and choosing each other no matter what." Lena's lips curved into a soft, confident smile. Then let's make it official, she said, leaning in, and they sealed the moment with a kiss that carried months of trials, passion, and shared growth. Their bodies pressed together, hands exploring with reverent intimacy, slow and purposeful, each kiss a silent vow of enduring love. Weeks later, surrounded by close friends and family in an intimate ceremony, Ethan and Lena exchanged vows, eyes locked, hearts open. There were tears, laughter, and moments of sheer joy. When they kissed to seal their vows, it was a kiss heavy with history, struggle, and triumph, a full-circle moment where every challenge had been transformed into an unbreakable bond. The reception was quiet, elegant, but more importantly, authentic. Lena's hands rested on Ethan's chest as he whispered jokes in her ear, both of them laughing, bodies close, fingers intertwined. The intimacy was subtle but omnipresent, a hand on a lower back, a gentle brush of lips against temple, a shared glance that spoke volumes. Each gesture reaffirmed the depth of connection they had built. Later, in the quiet aftermath, they returned to their private sanctuary. Lena leaned against Ethan, head on his shoulder, arms wrapped around his waist. Ethan's hands traced patterns on her back, fingers occasionally brushing her hair, a gentle intimacy that was both comforting and electric. They whispered dreams for the future, plans of travel, and aspirations, always grounded in mutual respect and love. The night ended as it had in the early days, but with a difference. Now, trust and passion coexisted seamlessly. Lena fell asleep pressed against him, knowing with certainty that their love had weathered storms, conquered doubt, and emerged unshakable. Ethan held her close, lips brushing her temple in a soft, protective kiss, promising silently that nothing could undo what they had built. And in that stillness, the city around them alive with distant hums, Lena realized that love, real, authentic, passionate, and respectful, was not just possible. It was hers, fully and irrevocably. The story concluded with victory over adversity, celebration of intimacy both emotional and physical, and a clear vision of a shared, happy future. Their love had not only survived, it had flourished, transforming trials into connection, pain into passion, and fear into trust. Do you believe everyone deserves a second chance at love? Could love truly conquer all, even the darkest storms?
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.